Does celery juice really work? My 10-day experiment, I'm going to answer this question once and for all. In case you don't know, there's been a lot of talk about celery juice. The benefits of celery juice that we're going to be talking about today come from a book called Medical Medium, written by Anthony William. Now, his claims are controversial to say the least. He says that celery juice will improve your complexion, reduce inflammation, and help with weight loss. You see, there are a lot of recipes out there for making celery juice, but most of them are wrong. According to Anthony Williams, celery juice should give you a natural glow and improve the overall health and appearance of your skin. Now, I'm not going to lie. I didn't really notice much of a difference in my skin during the first 5 days of drinking celery juice. Celery juice itself won't directly lead to weight loss. However, celery juice can indirectly aid in weight loss by reducing inflammation in the body. Now, I have to admit that I didn't really notice a difference in my energy levels during the first 5 days of drinking celery juice. Some people claim that celery juice causes diarrhea, nausea, and other digestive issues. However, I didn't experience any of these side effects. Also, if you got any value out of this video, please hit the like button and consider subscribing. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. In fact, I had perfect bowel movements every single day while drinking celery juice. Other people claim that celery juice causes low blood pressure and other cardiovascular issues. However, I didn't experience any of these side effects either. In fact, I had the opposite experience. My blood pressure actually increased while drinking celery juice, which is what I expected, since celery is known to raise blood pressure. Finally, some people claim that celery juice is high in oxalates and can cause kidney stones. However, this is not entirely accurate. Yes, celery does contain oxalates, but when it's juiced, the oxalate concentration actually decreases. So overall, I didn't experience any negative side effects from drinking celery juice. However, after 5 days, I started feeling more energized and less fatigued. And after 10 days, I could definitely see a difference. I had more energy throughout the day, and I never felt sluggish or tired. So if you're struggling with fatigue, I would definitely recommend giving celery juice a try. You see, inflammation is a major cause of excess fat. In fact, the CDC estimates that over 68% of adults in the United States have some degree of inflammation. Now, this can be due to a variety of factors, including a poor diet, lack of exercise, stress, smoking, and alcohol consumption. However, the good news is that reducing inflammation in the body can lead to fat loss, and this is where celery juice comes in. The anti-inflammatory properties of celery juice can help reduce inflammation in the body, which may lead to fat loss. Now again, celery juice won't directly lead to weight loss, but it can indirectly aid in weight loss by reducing inflammation in the body. However, after just 5 days, I noticed that my skin started to look brighter and more radiant. And after 10 days, I could definitely see a difference. My skin looked healthier and more hydrated than ever before. Now, I'm not saying that celery juice is a miracle for your skin, but it definitely did improve my complexion. In fact, Anthony Williams has specifically warned against certain practices like pasteurizing or blending the juice, saying that it will destroy the sodium cluster crystals and render the juice ineffective. So here's exactly how I made my celery juice every day for the past 10 days. First, I washed 2 pounds of celery thoroughly under cold water, and then cut the roots and the tops off. Then I put the celery in a blender with 6 cups of distilled water. Next, I blended the celery for 1 minute on low speed. And after that, I strained the mixture through a fine mesh strainer for about 15 minutes. I pressed down on the pulp to extract as much juice as possible, and then I transferred the juice into a sealed container. I drank half of the juice immediately, and then refrigerated the rest for later in the day. By the way, if you're wondering, I drank the juice in the morning on an empty stomach, just like Anthony Williams recommends. He even goes as far as to say that celery juice can cure diabetes, arthritis, and even some cancers. That sounds too good to be true. So how much truth is there to these claims? Now, I have to admit that I have pretty good digestion to begin with. However, I did notice a difference after drinking celery juice. After drinking celery juice every day for 10 days, I had perfect bowel movements every single day. I never experienced any bloating, gas, or indigestion, and I felt great afterwards. If you're struggling with digestion, I would definitely recommend giving celery juice a try. In fact, in 2019, it was Google's No. one trending search term. And according to a recent survey, 67% of consumers are now drinking celery juice because of its supposed health benefits. But does celery juice really work? That is exactly what I am gone. Nah, find out by drinking celery juice every day for 10 days. Before we get started, I just want to say that I'm not a medical professional, so always consult your doctor before starting any new diet or supplement regimen. To start off, let's look at the science behind celery juice. There are over 30 different studies about celery that have been conducted in the past decade alone, and most of them show that celery has some pretty amazing health benefits. For example, celery is high in antioxidants, which helps fight free radicals and reduce oxidative damage in our cells. It's also a great source of vitamins and minerals like vitamin K, vitamin C, calcium, and sodium. And yes, even though celery juice doesn't contain a lot of calories, only 40 calories per cup, it does contain a compound called apigenin, which may actually help with weight loss. Apigenin is a flavonoid that has been shown to reduce body fat and improve insulin sensitivity in animal studies. Of course, more research needs to be done on humans, but it's still pretty promising. The other thing about celery juice is that it's alkaline. In fact, celery has one of the highest pH levels out of any vegetable, with a pH level of 6.79. This means that celery juice can help neutralize acid in your body, which may be beneficial for people with acid reflux or other digestive issues. But probably the most important thing about celery juice is something called the sodium cluster crystals. These are positively charged clusters of sodium, potassium, and other minerals that form when celery is juiced, according to Anthony Williams. These crystals are responsible for all of the health benefits that we associate with celery juice. He says that they help hydrate your cells, reduce inflammation, and boost your immune system. Now, there isn't a lot of scientific evidence to support these claims, but there is some. For example, one study found that mice given sodium cluster crystals had an increase in their natural killer cell activity, which is a measure of immune function. Another study found that sodium cluster crystals were able to reduce inflammation in rats with arthritis. Now again, more research needs to be done, but the early results are promising. So now that we've covered the science, let me show you exactly how to make celery juice the right way. Alright, now let's talk about my results. First, let's start with my skin. Next, let's talk about digestion. Anthony Williams claims that the sodium cluster crystals in celery juice will help improve digestion and reduce bloating and gas. Now, some of you might be wondering if celery juice will help you lose weight. Well, here's the thing. And finally, let's talk about energy. According to Anthony Williams, the sodium cluster crystals in celery juice will help you feel energized and reduce fatigue. Alright, now let's talk about some of the negative side effects of celery juice. Alright, now I want to hear from you. Have you tried celery juice? What was your experience? Let me know in the comments below.